Good evening, everyone. I am at the home of Joshua Kirk in Ocala, Florida. Today is May the 24th, 2016. Right now, I'd like to bring forward Joshua Kirk. Good evening, Joshua.
Good evening.
Could you please tell everyone how you are connected to Perry and Celia Kirks?
I am connected to Perry and Cecilia Kirks because my father, Perry Kirks Jr., is the son of Perry Kirks Sr., my grandfather.
So are you the oldest child of Perry Jr.?
No, I'm one of five and the eldest.
Could you give us the names of your siblings?
I have one sister and three brothers. My sister name is Erlene. She's next to me. I have a brother, Perry, who is named after my father, next to her. And I have two twin brothers, Alvin and Calvin, who are the youngest.
And are your siblings alive today? Are your siblings alive today? Are they living?
None. None are alive today but me.
Could you tell us what type of relationship you had with your parents?
Well, I had a normal, I think, relationship with my mother, who cared for an only child for a few years, and therefore developed a strong, protective kind of relationship with me. My father I had a buddy-buddy relationship with. I spent most of his time when he wasn't at work and he wasn't doing something else with me. I felt like I was his big thing.
What memories do you have of your grandparents?
My grandparents were like in the background of my life. My grandmother, Celia, she didn't talk much. Was always in the kitchen, doing whatever. My grandfather, he would be the one who addressed me and caused conversation with me. He asked me whatever, just to get me talking with him.
What type of home did your grandparents have as far as hospitality goes?
I would say my grandparents' home was the place where if people congregated, that's where they would go most likely. They didn't congregate in each other's home because it wasn't large enough. But my grandparents' home was a larger home, and with most Cecilia, I guess that's why she's in the kitchen so much, because she was always cooking to have food for people who did show up. homes, I went to uncles, aunts. That was not the case. Because as I speak now, I don't remember ever having a meal in any of the other people's.
So, did other people come to your grandparents' house other than your uncles and aunts?
Other folk?
Yes.
Not, probably so, but not that I would be interested in as a child. But, because they were very friendly people, my grandparents. My uncles, they were not very hospitable.
In what way?
In no way I can recall. They were either bunched up together on the porches or at my grandparents' home or on the street, but not necessarily in their own places of residence.
Where did you live in Cleveland, Ohio?
As a child, I guess I was born on Holt North Court, 5802 Holt North Court. After my father passed, I lived in 71st and Montgomery until I was about 10 years old. And then after that, my mother moved us to 84th off of Quincy.
Which aunt and uncle do you remember the most?
Which
and
one?
why? Which aunt and uncle do you remember the most and why?
Well, I remember Uncle George because he and my daddy, I felt, were real buddies. I remember Aunt Gertrude because Aunt Gertrude was a pretty woman. And also she was very, 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 very nice to me. I remember Uncle Hoodie because he acted and was the leader of the pack, so to speak.
And the pack meaning who?
That means that he was the boss man. They all respected him. In fact, I thought, until I knew better, that Hilliard was, the father. He was a true big brother, as I look back on it.
Okay. Were your aunts and uncles, were you very close to your aunts and your uncles? And in what way, if so?
I'll repeat that, please.
Were you very close to your aunts and uncles? And if so, in what way were you very close?
I was very close to my uncle George because he lived close to me across the street on Ocala Court. And I would go over there by myself because it was so close. I was not, Johnny B, I was not close to, but I remember Johnny B because Johnny B would visit us. Us meaning my sister, brothers, and so forth. My other uncles didn't visit us as Johnny B did. Johnny B came to visit, even after my father died.
And your aunts? Your aunts?
Even after my father died.
What about your aunts? Were you close with your aunts?
Gertrude, no. Gertrude was always just a nice person, said what she had to say, and that's the bit. But I like Gertrude because of that, and because she was Celia's mother too. You know, Celia and Laura, and because of them, I naturally related to Gertrude.
Do you recall a time when you lived in Cleveland that people would come from other states to your grandparents' home?
What?
Do you recall a time living in Cleveland, Ohio, where people would come from other states and need lodging, and they would come to your grandparents' home?
Well, not vividly, but through conversation, listening to people talk, I assume that people, they were my grandparents' friends or relatives, and they were come to my grandparents be the first place they come when they got to Cleveland. You know, I got that kind of feeling looking back. That's possibly the only reason that they would do that.
I noticed when I first realized that I had a cousin in Florida that was the oldest cousin of our family, that in corresponding with you, you had a very unusual email address. Can you tell us what it is and how you came about having that email address?
Well, my email address is Kirk, Kirkchick, Kirkchick at AOL.com. Kirk, as know, is part of my name. Chick had to do with my nickname or my pet name that my father called me Chick. He didn't call me Josh. Well, hey Chick, come here. And that came by due to the fact that my father was a semi-pro boxer. And he had his punching bag, the speed bag, hanging in the ceiling in the basement. And the speed bag has got a rim around, a circle, wooden, and the bag extends from it, and it practices better. And there was the bag hung near the steps coming down the basement. And I was at least 5 years old. Because I could spring from the steps and up high enough to grab the rim of that held the bag and hold on and swing, and then drop to the floor. That's how I got to the floor. I didn't walk the last 4 or 5 steps. I sprung and swung, and then dropped to the floor. Well, it was during these times, people were still in the South from our family. We're still in the South. And still being in the South, they had chickens, fowl, turkeys. And during the fall of the year, they would start sending that stuff up the Cleveland, the people, family. And they sent it on a crate. Federal Express. Train, I guess, first, then Federal Express. And they delivered to the house. They'd be live, you know. And my mother, in our case, when they came to us, she'd have the men set the crate in the basement. And then my mother would turn them loose, the chickens, in the basement. Well, you didn't have one light in the basement, you know. And then in the daytime, you had enough light coming in through the basement windows that you didn't turn it on. You only turn the light on at night. So this one day I came home, chickens had been delivered and turned loose, and came home from school, ran in the house per usual, headed downstairs, jumped for the rim of the thing that held the bag, missed the rim, fell among them damn chickens. My daddy got such a kick out of that, boy. My mother told me what happened and how I acted, that he called me chick, I guess, just to, you know, tease me, you know. And so that name developed from that incident is what I use as part of my email address.
So thinking of that, and that had to be sort of a devastating experience for you, tell us how you feel about chickens today.
I hate them.
You mean you don't like fried chicken and turkey?
I never ate a piece of chicken to know it.
And that is because of what?
Huh?
That's because of what?
Because of that fear, I guess, that happened at that moment when I fell among them. I don't even deal with a fellow duster.